Welcome back to the channel. Honestly, I didn't expect to get this hooked on this game. Mongil Star Dive. The name might sound unfamiliar, but after a few days of grinding, I have to admit one thing. This is one of the most worth playing action RPGs released this year. But, and this is a pretty big but, it still has issues that if Netmarble doesn't fix, could very likely cause the game to die out after just a few months. Today I'm going to give a straightforward breakdown. What's good, what's bad, and what needs to change immediately. First, let's talk about the things that genuinely impressed me. The first thing I have to mention is Unreal Engine 5. I know many of you have heard this a lot already, but Mongil is one of the few mobile and PC games that actually makes proper use of this engine. The character facial expressions are lively, the environmental lighting is extremely detailed, and especially the cutscenes are directed like a high-quality anime. I was watching them and almost forgot I was even playing a game. And another thing that really surprised me, the game's loading speed is incredibly fast, even when I'm running it on an old HDD. That's a huge plus because not everyone has a high-end SSD. But the part I enjoy the most in terms of gameplay mechanics is the chain action system. In most current action RPGs like Genshin or ZZZ, when you swap characters, the previous one disappears instantly. Mongil is different. The swapped out character stays on the field for a short time, continuing to attack or support. This means you can create situations where all three characters in your team appear and fight at the same time. Visually, it looks amazing, and from a strategy perspective, it opens up many ways to optimize damage. I've tested a few combos with Verna, Francis, and Flare. When all three appear on screen together, it feels incredibly satisfying. Especially Francis, when you swap to Flare, she increases Flare's attack, and when Flare swaps to Verna, she boosts Verna's fire damage, so this trio synergizes really well. In the future, I'll try to get Mina to replace Verna. I'm really curious how strong the damage will be. Just imagining it already gets me excited. Next is the Gacha system. And this is something I genuinely have to praise Netmarble for. The limited character rate is 1%, pity is at 90 pulls, and most importantly, there's no 50-50 mechanic like in Genshin or Wuthering Waves. That means when you hit pity, you are guaranteed to get the character you want without having to rely on luck again. For an F2P player like me, this is an extremely fair and commendable system. On top of that, the game gives you Francis, a support character, completely free, along with coupon codes to help new players. It's clear that Netmarble is trying to create a friendly environment for newcomers. So, what about the Monsterling system? This, in my opinion, is the true soul of the game. Instead of just having standard equipment sets, you collect monsters directly on the map through Nyaners, the main character's super cute cat companion. After being defeated, these monsters turn into Monsterlings, and you can equip up to 3 per character. High-level Monsterlings can even trigger their own attack animations when you perform a perfect dodge. The feeling of suddenly summoning a giant monster to jump in and fight alongside your character, it just feels really cool. The world of Balana is also quite well built. There are 3 main continents with very distinct styles, from the Centralia Kingdom with its Monster Hunter Guild to the Far East region with strong Asian influences. What I especially like is the scenery and the clear presence of Korean traditional style characters. The story is humorous and approachable, without overly cryptic dialogue. I think this is a smart choice because players nowadays don't want to look up a dictionary just to understand what the game is saying. Alright, now we get to the part that I think anyone who's still on the fence about this game really needs to hear. The issues that actually need fixing. The biggest problem for me is the depth of the combat system. Chain action looks great, but after playing for a while, I realized the game is missing a key element. A parry system. Counterattacks. In Wuthering Waves or ZZZ, successfully parrying a boss attack and then unleashing a counter combo feels incredibly satisfying. It creates that sense of impact, the feeling that your inputs are directly influencing the outcome of the fight. Mongil right now mostly relies on dodging, and even the perfect dodge mechanic only works on certain enemy attacks. This makes late game combat feel like a DPS check. meaning you win not because you play well, but because your character stats are high enough.
I'm sorry.
This is something I think Netmarble really needs to address if they want to retain hardcore players. The second issue, visual clutter. I understand the game wants to look flashy, but when everyone is using skills at the same time, the screen becomes chaotic. I can't see where the enemies are, I can't read attack animations to dodge properly, and when you get pushed into a corner, it gets even worse. I can barely see anything at all. This isn't just a visual problem, it directly affects gameplay. Netmarble needs to add options to reduce effect density or brightness, or make them more transparent when you're pushed into a wall, like how Where Winds Meet handles it quite well. The third issue is character movement. When I play characters that use long weapons like spears, it's very noticeable that the animations aren't smooth enough. The characters feel like they're slightly sliding on the ground, lacking real interaction with the environment. Attack speed also feels a bit slow and stiff. I think this is something that needs fine-tuning if the game wants to shake off the label of being a simple action game.
No, you wait here, Gubby.
Now we get to the part that really gives me a headache, the RNG system. Monsterling fusion. Combining Monsterlings is, in theory, a very interesting mechanic, but in practice, you fuse two Monsterlings and their traits are inherited randomly. The problem is, if you don't use special protection items, you can completely lose a good trait that you spent a long time farming for. This is RNG on top of RNG. Sounds exhausting, right? And it doesn't stop there. The materials needed to upgrade Monsterlings are gated behind high-level main story missions. That means for new players who want to build proper Monsterlings, you first have to push through the story. I understand this is a way to retain players, but it creates a feeling of being stuck. What about equipment? Substats are hidden until you upgrade them, which means you have to spend resources before even knowing if the gear is worth it. And footwear. The item many players need the most, has its main stat divided by character roles, meaning your chance of getting the right stat is only 1 in 4. Farming the right footwear becomes a long and often frustrating journey. As for the business model, I also have a few things to say, honestly. The keys system, basically stamina, limits how fast you can progress, while there are too many things to upgrade at the same time. Character skills, artifacts, monsterlings. Then there are two types of battle pass, business, and first class, along with VIP shops. For F2P players, after a while you'll start to feel the power wall, where your progress becomes noticeably slower compared to paying players. I'm not criticizing the monetization model. This is a free-to-play game. Developers need to make a living. But I think the current design creates a subtle and somewhat uncomfortable pressure to spend for many players. That said, I think if you want to spend, you spend. If you want to stay free to play, just keep playing free. I'm a free to play player myself, and I think we should just enjoy the game. Also, since there's no PvP system, it doesn't feel like the game forces you to spend to compete with others. In fact, with just the 3 characters you get early on, I've already progressed through almost the entire game, so I don't really find it frustrating. The points I mentioned above are more like speaking on behalf of a portion of the community. I also hope the developers can add more keys in certain important missions so free-to-play players can have a bit more resources. One more thing I want to point out is that the information about whether pity carries over between banners is currently only confirmed through Discord and not shown in the in-game interface. This creates unnecessary confusion. Netmarble should clearly state this directly in the game's UI. Overall, I think Mongil Stardive is in a very interesting position. It doesn't try to copy Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves. It chooses its own path. Beautiful graphics, gameplay that's fun enough, time-saving features like sweep, and a more friendly gacha system compared to most competitors. This is a game that suits busy players, people who don't want to spend dozens of hours exploring an open world every week. But for the game to truly grow and avoid dying out early, Netmarble needs to address at least 3 things. First, add a parry mechanic or a more complex interaction system in combat to retain hardcore players. Second, reduce RNG and Monsterling fusion. Give players at least some way to protect good traits without needing to spend money.
should retreat
And
from
third, make all gacha rules fully transparent directly in the game interface, so players don't have to go to Discord to ask about them. What do you think about this? Is the lack of a parry system a big issue for you, or are the visuals and chain action already enough to overlook it? And more importantly,
What?
do you think Netmarble will actually listen to the community and fix these problems? Leave a comment and let me know. I read all of them.